Man, I often look back at those VHS rental days where you would walk into a video store and see this insane cover art. I'm talking muscle-bound barbarians, half-naked maidens, and drooling ogre monsters. And think to yourself, as I did, this is cinema, right? But then you bring it home, pop it in the player, and instead of Conan battling this epic monster, you get instead some dude in a rubber pig mask. That's the Deathstalker franchise in a nutshell. In today's video, we'll break down all 4 movies and discuss how their epic cover art and posters promised glorious fantasy action. But the movies gave us really terrible films, but in the best cases, some really good cheesy fun as well. Alright, let's start with the first Deathstalker movie, released in 1983, produced by Roger Corman to cash in on Conan the Barbarian's success. The legendary fantasy illustrator Boris Vallejo painted all the Deathstalker posters, and that first poster especially is a classic example of the kind of hand-drawn illustrations you got for a lot of B-movie posters during the 80s, which you don't get as much anymore. When you look at this poster, Deathstalker looks like he could bench press a dragon, standing beside a perfect, pulpy fantasy maiden, while a hulking pig ogre looms behind them. It's epic. But in the movie, the pig ogre is literally just a dude in a floppy mask, and Deathstalker, played by Rick Hill, while he does somewhat match Vallejo's barbarian warrior, he looks like a low-rent He-Man, cannot act, and his line delivery is about as wooden as his sword. Just like He-Man, fabulous secret powers were revealed to him the day he held aloft his highly suggestive magic sword. Instead of sweeping fantasy battles, you get sleazy exploitation, gratuitous nudity, and gore. The supporting cast here is where the camp really shines. You got Barbi Benton from Playboy and Hee Haw. She doesn't have much to do other than like run around half naked. Then you got Bernard Erhard as the campy villain Munkar, who is basically a poor man's Skeletor. He rants, he cackles. He probably wishes he had better robes. Then you have Lana Clarkson as Kyra, the badass warrior woman who feels like she should be the movie's lead because, quite frankly, the movie improves whenever she's on screen. Geez, I wonder why that is. The acting, action, plot are so horrendously awful. But that said, this Roger Corman Conan knockoff worked in the end. It made money. And more importantly, it looked great on a VHS shelf. Alright, now we get to Deathstalker 2, also produced by Roger Corman, which is probably the best of the bunch. Directed by Jim Wynorski, who basically decided to make the sequel into a spoof of the entire sword and sorcery genre. If the first movie was Conan light, this sequel goes full comedy.
Deathstalker? Is that your first name or your last name?
John Turleski takes over as Deathstalker, playing him like a smirking Han Solo. He's constantly winking at the audience, tossing off bad puns, and refusing to take the whole thing seriously.
Oh, so you rob from the rich and give to the poor.
No, I rob from the rich and pretty much keep it.
He helps Princess Evie reclaim her throne. Princess Evie is played by Monique Gabrielle, who does double duty as both the princess and her evil clone. I gotta say, Monique Gabrielle is pretty charming and endearing. Of course, she's drop-dead gorgeous and functions as eye candy like a lot of the women in these movies, but, you know, she's self-aware of how cheesy the movie is, and that's reflected in her performances. It's a lot of fun to see her as both the damsel in distress and the villain, where you get to see her in one scene pouting, acting childish, and screaming her head off.
You mean you would have helped me without the money?
I didn't say that!
Steve.
And then in another scene, she goes full villain.
I hate her! I hate her! I hate her!
And it's just, for me, one of the delights of the movie. Maria Sakis plays the evil sorceress Sultana, who looks like a dominatrix. Her, like, glam rock outfits look straight out of some kind of heavy metal 80s video shoot. John Lazar plays Jarek the Sorcerer, who is just another garden variety cartoon villain. I also have to mention the score for Deathstalker 2, composed by Chuck Torino, which is not this epic symphonic score that one would expect from a sword and sorcery movie. No, they go with a more synth-based electronic sound, especially for that main Deathstalker theme, which is so catchy and memorable. I love it. It just perfectly matches the cheesy excitement and parody-style tone of the movie. And also, the musical score here just reflects the low budget and is a product of its times, because a lot of these B-movies in the 80s just could not afford a full orchestra, and so had to rely on synthesizers, you know? And the musical choices here, again, just are so anachronistic for the sword and sorcery genre, and that's why they're so perfect for this movie, which is approaching its genre tropes with this smirk and knowing wink. The poster here, again, is another bait and switch. Boris Vallejo paints it like the next Conan the Barbarian, with ripped barbarians, gorgeous damsels, and demonic monsters ready to crush civilization. The actual movie, more like Naked Gun meets He-Man. The villains are cartoonish, the fights are cheap, and the tone is pure parody. And honestly, like I said, this is the best of the series. It's campy, dumb, but actually pretty fun. Alright, so now we really hit bottom here. Deathstalker 3, The Warriors from Hell, from 1988. John Allen Nelson takes over as Deathstalker, who is searching for a magic stone. That's it. And this epic Warriors from Hell battle is just guys in bad costumes fighting each other, basically. Boris Vallejo's poster, of course, makes it look like an apocalypse. Deathstalker is facing a horde of monsters, sword blazing, companion at his side. However, in the movie, we spend most of our time watching Deathstalker hanging out with potato-eating hermits. The highlight of the third movie isn't this epic Clash of Titans. It's basically an extended snack break. John Allen Nelson looks more like a soap opera heartthrob cosplaying as a barbarian. Carla Hurd plays twin princesses, Carissa and Elizina, doubling the damsel quota without doubling the personality. And then we have Tom Christopher as the villain Troxardus, who delivers his lines like he's doing Shakespeare in a high school gym.
There's a third storm!
Again, epic fantasy art promised a battle for the ages, but what we get is Deathstalker, carbs, and a lot of filler. The grand finale of the series, Deathstalker 4, Match of the Titans, released in 1991, sees Rick Hill return as Deathstalker, which sounds like a big deal until you realize half the movie is just recycled stock footage. The poster, Vallejo goes all out, towering barbarian hero, lion-headed monster, chaos everywhere. However, in the movie, the lion monster shows up for a few minutes, does nothing, and leaves. Most of the battles are just bad sword fights. But again, that poster on a VHS case is pure magic. The Deathstalker series are the ultimate bait and switch of the VHS era. They're just this snapshot of 80s B-movie marketing. I think those Boris Vallejo posters still hold up today. They're so epic and unforgettable, while the movies are obviously so cheap, sleazy, and hilariously disappointing. But that was the Roger Corman way. I mean, these 80s movie posters did not have to match the film. They just had to get you to rent the tape, and honestly, mission accomplished. I mean, I was one of those dupes who was seduced by the amazing cover art. So whenever you see one of these covers, just remember that behind every ripped barbarian and monstrous ogre on the posters is probably just a dude in a stupid pig mask waiting to let you down. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed the vid. Let me know if you're a fan of these kinds of 80s sword and sorcery cult movies, and if you're going to check out the new Deathstalker reboot. Please like and subscribe, and look forward to more reviews coming your way soon.